Lesson 1-7 Functions. This is day 1 on a 2-day lesson on functions. The essential question for this lesson is, how do you determine if a relation is a function? The definition of a function is the relationship between the input, also known as x, and the output, also known as y. A vertical line test tells you if a graph is a function. So in this lesson, we're going to be looking at all kinds of different relations. You talked about relations in 1-6. So relations can be displayed as a mapping, as a graph, as a table, or as ordered pairs. So we're going to look at those 4 different things in this lesson and then determine which one of those relations also makes a function. All right, so are these functions? This lesson is going to give you different graphs and tables and mappings, as I mentioned earlier. You don't have to draw this graph exactly in your notes like this, but if you could make a coordinate grid and then draw a big U, just like we've got right here, that'll help you solve this problem. So we have to decide, is this relationship a function? Now you noticed in our vocab that we said that a vertical line test could tell you if a graph is a function. Here is what the vertical line test is. You're going to take your pencil on your graph and draw vertical lines. And it's nice because this is a graph with grid lines, so I can just make all of my vertical lines right on my grid lines. All right, so I have 5 vertical lines. Now what I'm going to do, or 6 vertical lines, excuse me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot where each vertical line touches my blue graph. It's not going to be exact, but it will be close. So you'll notice on each line I only have 1 dot. If on each line I only have 1 dot, meaning each one of my red lines touched my blue line 1 time, that means it is a function. And we know that because it passes the vertical line test, also known as the VLT. Let's look at another one. It can be a little bit confusing to figure out the vertical line test at first, but I think after you do a few examples, it'll start to make sense. Let's look at the next one. Again, we have a blue line. This time our line is a diagonal rather than a parabola or a U. So I'm going to draw vertical lines on my graph. Then, for each red line, I'm going to make a dot where it crosses the blue line. So this red dot crosses the blue line right here. This red line crosses the blue line here. This red line crosses the blue line here, 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 and here. So you'll notice on each of my red lines, I only have 1 dot. 1 dot means it's a function. And the reason why is it passes the VLT. Another graph. This time we have a vertical line. So I am going to draw my red line over my already vertical line. So now you'll notice we've got a blue line and then a red line directly on top of it. This one is always tricky. Ask yourself right now, does this make a function? Well, let's start making dots where the red line touches the blue line. Touches it right here, 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 and so on. It will, since they're both directly on top of each other, they will continue touching forever because these lines continue forever. Did we only make one red dot on our red line? No, we made lots of red dots. So this one would be no, and the reason is that it fails the VLT. Now remember, the vertical line test can only be used if it is a graph. It won't work for a table or coordinate points or a mapping, only graphs. So now we're going to go to some tables. So these ones look a little bit different. The way you figure out if these functions are functions is we always look at the x column. So I'm going to circle all of our numbers in the x column. Remember, domain is another word for x, range is another word for y. Kind of like input also works, is another name for x. Output is another number letter for y. All right, so we notice our -7 goes directly to -12. Our -4 goes directly to -9, 2 goes to 3, 5 goes to 0. None of our numbers in the x column are repeating, so we have no repeats. If none of the values in my x column repeat, it is a function. We're going to say yes, and I'm going to write for my reason, x values are not repeated. Every single x value goes to its own y value. All right, let's do the same thing for the bottom. This time our table is already labeled x and y. So I'm going to circle all my x values, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So this 3 goes to 2, 1 goes to -2, 2 goes to -1, 3 goes to -1. Now you have to ask yourself, are any of my x values repeated? And you'll notice, yes. The 3 here and the 3 here is repeated. The rule with a function is you cannot have the same x value go to 2 different y values. So 3 can't be paired with 2 and also paired with -1. So I'm going to say no. The x value has 2 y values. So 3 cannot be paired with 2 and -1. Couple more. Now those last 2 are tables. Now we have a mapping. A mapping is really similar to a table except that it's 2 ovals rather than 2 rectangles, and then you also have the arrows drawn in for you. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the table, where I'm going to circle my y or x values. Are any of my x values repeated? 3, 4, 5, and -1. Nope, none of them repeat, so yes. No x values repeat. You don't want repeats if you want it to be a function. You don't want any x values to repeat if it's a function. All right, as one last practice, we are going to take all of our different relations and determine whether or not they're a function or not a function. So let's start here on the left. I've got -1, 0, and 1. You'll notice that all of my x values go to the same y value, but are any of my x values repeated? -1, 0, and 1? No, they're not. So therefore it is a function. It is okay that they are all tied to 3 as long as none of the values in the x column are repeated. Our next one, our x values are 3, 1, 2, and 3. 3 is repeated in the x column, so that is not a function. And I'll circle that. 3 and 3. 3 is listed twice. For this one, we can do the vertical line test. If I did the vertical line test on this, it would pass, therefore it's a function. If I did a vertical line test on the parabola, it would pass, therefore it's a function. If I look at my mapping, look at my x values, none of them repeat, so it is a function. Look at my table, none of my x values repeat, so it is a function. Vertical line, if I put my line on top of the vertical line, it would touch an infinite number of times, so it's not a function. And if I look at this mapping, when you see a mapping with two arrows coming from it, it means the -3 is tied to both 1 and 4. So it's kind of like if I had a table, -3 goes to 1 and -3 goes to 4. So since I have two values that are both -3 under the x side, that is not a function. Fill out your summary. A relation is a function if. And the homework assignment for this lesson is pages 49 through 51, 1 through 3, 5 through 8, 20 through 25, 46 through 47.